do-it-yourself investing, and I just want to go over it again. Where's my clicker? Clicker. Hey, because there's a couple of things I forgot to put in because of course I didn't have slides with me. Don't care about this.
That's interesting though.
Yeah, waiting to beat the market, or I guess it's really more wanting to beat the market. I probably spelled that wrong. But waiting is a word at least, so it would have still up my spell checker. There's magazines, books, videos, seminars, workshops. I guess this thing on how to beat the market. We're going to beat the market, and I was alluding to right before I began, I guess, the slide is everybody's trying to beat the market. Why do you think you're going to beat the market and beat everybody else? Because that's basically what you have to do. You got to beat everybody else to beat the market. And a lot of people say, well, there's a secret. The people with the money, they know something that we don't. There's an uneven playing field. Okay? There can be uneven playing fields. Okay? Martha Stewart was a great example. She got some insider information. She went to jail not for trading on it. That would be more of a fine, slap on the wrist kind of thing. She just covered it up, and they never like cover-ups.
She lied about it.
Plus, they want to make an example of a big name. That kind of helped. That was unfair. But it carries a lot of risk with it if you're going to use that kind of information. Wall Street being evil, we all see the movies. When does Wall Street ever look good in the movies? For that matter, when do companies ever look good in the movies? When does a business owner ever look good in the movies? I mean, people with money, people with power are always perceived as evil, and then some underdogs we're not going to do. So we got to figure out a way to beat those people at their own game. And if you think about it, so we're going to beat them at their own game where they have unfair advantages everywhere. In how exactly you're going to do that? Well, don't worry because the
should that be wanting to beat the market?
Yeah, that's what I said. It's the magazines, books, videos, seminars, workshops before you'll do that. The blogs nowadays, of course, blog should probably be up there. The blogs, the internet, it's going to tell you how to do that. Okay? I've got a couple clients that they are on every mailing list for this kind of stuff because they actually subscribe to several things. Kind of like, oh, this is going to tell me how to do this, and then they subscribe, and then they get 14 other offers for things that are going to show them how to do stuff. And they're constantly coming to me and saying, don't you think we should do this? Don't you think we should do that? Don't you think we should do this? And some of the stuff I've never even heard of before. Maybe it's a wonderful idea, and for some reason, somebody for almost free felt like giving the world their secret could have made their money, but they want to share it with the world. But I doubt it. I doubt it. Hey, let me just tell you about some of the newsletters. Here, by the way, if you want to have one of the best-selling investment newsletters, here's what you do. You begin by having 100 newsletters. Give them all different titles. Okay? You make a prediction, an up or down prediction on a stock, on a market. Kind of depends what the newsletter is going to be on. Okay? Half of them you predict one way, half of them you predict another way. And then you wait a month, a year, however long it takes, right? You then stop the newsletters. You're not going to even send them to anybody. You just got to have them, right? You stop the newsletters that were wrong. Make another bet with the remaining newsletters. Again, up or down. Half of them one way, half of them the other way. Half is going to win. Okay? Half is going to lose. You throw out the ones that lost. You keep the ones that won. Keep doing this 3 or 4 or 5 times. And the half dozen newsletters you have left has been right every single year or month or whatever for the last 5 years. But what you do, you began with 100 of them. You ended up with a handful of them, and you did nothing except just statistically know I'm going to lose on half of them, but at the end I'm going to have something. It's the old thing of kind of like if you flip a coin long enough, you're going to get heads 10 times in a row. You just got to flip it long enough. That is going to happen. Obviously, that was skill. Because if you saw a mutual fund manager or newsletter or whatever that had a 10-year winning record against the market or whatever index they're following, you'd think they were brilliant. Absolutely, if you just be luck. But you can, and there are newsletters that have done this. There's nothing illegal about it. That have done this to say, hey, we have a system where we have been able to pick the top 5 whatevers. If you examine what their system is, it's basically playing with random numbers is what they were doing. But it looks good if they're marketing it to you because they can show you, here's all the past issues. We have them date stamped. We have a notary that's proven that this thing was mailed on this date, to their mother-in-law, whoever would accept the mailing. Those kind of games are played all the time, which is probably why they think Wall Street is evil. Should you? And the thing, you're going to build your portfolio. Should you build your own car or house? Perhaps. I've got a guy who, and he can't do it as much now, but back when he was in his 40s, he never had house insurance. He said, I've got enough money to buy all the supplies and stuff, and I can build a house. I do that. I've done it in the past. I'll just build another one. Like, okay. I mean, it's really hard to argue about that. He had liability insurance in case somebody got tripped in the property or whatever. But as far as burning the house down, fine, let it burn down and build another one. I should probably not be the one who builds a house. Okay? All my projects are go to Lowe's, do stuff, go to Lowe's again, do stuff, go to Lowe's a third time, then call the handyman to fix what I did. Right? So there's that. And we talked about this slide here as far as that. But remember the commercials? I think was it E-Trade? So easy a baby could do it. Who was that? Was it E-Trade?
Oh yeah, they had the talking baby in the crib.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a Super Bowl commercial?
Oh yeah, there was a Super Bowl commercial.
They repeated it.
Yeah, it was all over the place and different versions. They were fun commercials. I love the commercials. And the idea is, open up an account with us, and it's basically a discount brokerage firm, and open up an account with us and trade really, really cheap, and we're going to give you the software which makes investing as easy, so easy that a baby can do it. Okay? And so it can be easy, but are you going to beat the market and really sound like, well, any decision you make, 50-50 chance. You're either going to beat it or not. So the worst thing that can happen is when you try this kind of stuff is you win the first time because then you think you've got to figure it out. And if you win 3 times in a row, again, throw a coin. If we all threw a coin in here 3 times, odds are one of us is thrown either heads or tails 3 times in a row. Okay? Bigger room, we definitely would have had heads.
It was the E-Trade baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so part 2 was when we talked about target date funds. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about target date funds because generally speaking, at our age, not including yourself, at our age, we're done with target date funds. Because remember, I told you target date funds have a glide path. And Michelle tries to get over here with our quotes and stuff. And when you're young, the glide path of the target date fund, let's say you have a 2020 target date fund, the glide path of the 20 date fund might begin with, say, 80% stocks and the rest bonds and stuff. And across time, until you actually get to 2020, it keeps going down and down and down till you may have, depends on the particular target date fund. I'm going to say that this one has like 60-40 stocks versus bonds. It might be less, it might be more. Okay. The thing is, once you get to this point, the premix stabilizes. And as I iterated to last week, what they'll do is they'll all dump into this thing usually called a retirement income fund. All the complexes that have a target date fund have this last fund called the retirement income fund or some other name that implies that. And what they will do is they will basically have everything from that point on the same. It really doesn't change. Now, they'll change a little bit with what markets do. So if they think the market's a little frothy, they'll back off stocks a little bit. If the market's a little underbought, then they'll add more stocks in. So that might change things maybe 5% one way or another. possibly 10, but usually not too much. And that's because, you would think, well, but when I'm 85, wouldn't I want to have a lot less money in stocks when I'm 65? And the answer is no. It depends on when you're going to die. And they don't know that. They don't know you, other than the fact they have a name, social security number, and address. Other than that, they don't know you. And so they're not customizing the fund to you. There's, hundreds of thousands of people that own that fund. So you're just one of those people, and they figure on average, this is a good mix for somebody who's retired, almost regardless of what age. And so at that point, or even before, there are these things called asset allocation funds. And I talked a little bit about it, but I didn't go into it last week. Asset allocation funds are simply a target date fund that has no glide path. Okay, so it begins like you might have one that's called the Cheaper Price has one, Personal Strategy Growth Fund. I'm thinking that's like 80-20 stocks bonds. Don't quote me on it. You can look it up on Morningstar with it. I think they call it the Personal Strategies Growth Fund. And they have a series of them. They actually have 2 different series of these things. And most of the fund complexes have something like this. And they just mix some of their other funds together, just like the target date fund does. But instead of having a glide path, it just stays at that. It stays at like the 80-20. Again, they'll move it up and down a little bit depending on what the things happen with the economy, but their base number doesn't change. They'll just kind of deviate a little bit from the base number. They'll have one maybe called the Personal Strategy Balanced Fund. That's probably around 60-40, 50-50 stocks bonds, something like that. Again, that might vary a little bit year to year depending on what the things happen with the economy and such, but it's not going to change from day one to year 3000 from that 60-40 or 50-50 mix. Then they'll have one that's like a target date income fund, which might be same. So they'll have all these different, not target date, but personal strategy income fund. So I have different versions, usually 3 to 5. It really depends what the marketing department tells them they need to have to attract as much money as possible, because that's what the business they're in. And if you find that at the end of your glide path, that particular what the target date fund is going to go into, or since most of us are at the end of the glide path anyway, the fund that's closest to our retirement is behind us now. Then you're basically in an asset allocation fund, no matter what you want to call it. So now you can pick and choose. Do I want a more aggressive one, a moderate one, or a more conservative one? Okay, so you can choose. But the key is with any of this, the key with the do-it-yourself investing is somebody else is making all the day-to-day decisions. Somebody else is studying the economy. Somebody else is trying to figure out which sector to be in that particular month. Somebody else is doing all of that for you. You don't have to figure it out. Don't have to buy a magazine. You don't have to do anything. Now you're going to be paying them for that. But what's a target date fund cost or an asset allocation fund cost these days? 0.8%, something like that. And there's even a couple ETFs that do this, which tend to be a lot cheaper. They'll index it though, but if you love indexing, then go there. And that might be like 0.5 or 0.4, something like that. So, and it's going to get cheaper as time goes on. I mean, this industry is getting cheaper as time goes on. To my chagrin, because I depend on it for my income, but it's good for everybody else. That'll be good when I retire. So that's the strategy to do. And remember, there's always 2 things you want. You want this thing, which gives you the growth, and somewhere you hide your cash that supplies your income when the target date fund or the asset allocation fund or your mixed portfolio that you build yourself, when that's not doing too well. Because during 2008, it was not doing too well. I pretty much guarantee it. Unless you were 100% U.S. government bonds, your portfolio went down in 2008. It just did. I don't care what you did. Gold went down in 2008. So during that time, you need to get money from somewhere. And if you got it from your asset allocation fund or target date fund, you would have to sell it at a loss from where it was. Now, maybe way up from when you first bought it, 20, 30 years ago. But it would be a loss from last time you looked at it. And it kept getting losser and losser and as 2008 went on. So that's not a good time to sell, right? You don't want to sell when it's down. You want to sell when it's up. So you need to have that pot of money that can get you through anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years. Really depends on your gut. How much can you stand this stuff going on to draw from without having to draw while your investment is down. That's the key. You don't have to draw when your investment is down. Now, in ridiculous things like 2008, and you only have 6 months cushion, you're going to run out of money. Okay? But that's fine, because realize you at least got out of some of it. You didn't have to sell it at a loss every single time. For at least 6 months, you got away with it. And the fact that you had more money invested over the last 10, 20, 30 years was much better for you than having a very wide cushion. But if you don't even want to experience that, a couple of years of spending money. Whatever you normally would be drawing from your investment account, have a couple years of that sitting in a cash account. So if that investment account goes down, you stop drawing from the investment account, you start drawing from this cash account, and live off of that until the thing comes back and you no longer have to sell it at a loss. And once it comes back, now you can sell it at not a loss. You have to sell some extra to refill up your cash to be ready for next time. Okay? You always want to be able to refill up the cash. So there's my clicker. All right, so that's all that we were talking about last week. I'm not going to go through the slide because we did that last week, blah, blah, blah. If you're actually going to do investing, I mean, I don't want to have some stinking little target date fund, asset allocation fund. I want to do it myself. I'm going to study the markets, figure out this kind of stuff. Fine. I mean, I sound like I'm making fun, but it's what I do. So
I'm smirking, by the way.
So
yeah, that's fine. It's easy.
Yeah. But if you're going to do that, become your own expert. Learn the basics. I mean, this is a, and I think in my book I specifically say this book, The Asset Allocation: Balancing Financial Risk by Roger Gibson. I think we're on edition 5 now. I think I first picked it up in edition 2, and he's still alive. That was the last time I heard. And so, it's kind of like the book on asset allocation. But it's like this thick, and for those of you listening, it's like, 3 inches thick. It's a big, massive book. It reads like a textbook, and for those of you who remember college, that wasn't always fun. Doesn't have any pictures in it. It has a couple graphs, but there's no cute doggies or anything like that in there. So, but if you're going to learn about investing, getting something that reads like a textbook probably isn't the worst thing for you because you're trying to learn, right? Now, there's actually another book. It's called Asset Allocation for Dummies. It's one of those yellow and black series. That's not a bad book. That's a very excellent book to learn the basics about how to build a portfolio. It doesn't teach stock picking. Okay, this is more kind of like how you mix the bonds and stocks and real estate and commodities and all that kind of stuff together, when to rebalance, when not to rebalance, those kind of things. The very basics of it. The stuff your asset allocation fund would be doing for you. But if you don't want to do that, you want to mix your own funds together or eventually even buy your own stocks and bonds and stuff, this is where you have to start. If you're not willing to do this, don't do your own investing. I mean, do you really want your doctor to be working on you if they're not willing to study? Right? So do you want your investment advisor to be working on your investments who doesn't care about learning stuff? They're just going to go off of what feels good that day. If you don't want that kind of advisor, don't do it yourself. Okay? That so many people do. And I have nothing against people doing do-it-yourself investing. I wrote chapters in my book for that. That's fine, but learn how to do it if you're going to do it.
And I just wanted to piggyback on that for a moment, because one of the biggest things that we do as advisors is hand-holding. It's not the picking and the choosing. It's telling you, that's a gut thing, that's a feeling, write it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is that you don't have that additional kind of safety guard or safety net that will say that's really dumb, don't do it.
Yeah, sure. Were you with Gary in 2008?
Yeah.
Were you?
I've been there a long time.
Imagine how much you remember when you were a child, and obviously, the reason I'm asking that, I suspect when everything went south, you had to do a lot of that hand-holding, didn't you?
We did, but it wasn't as much. I figured because coming into it, that was like the first really big hiccup that we saw. But because I came in from doing banking, and I was in
Right.
banking 12 years before,
Right.
so that's a complete different area. But we didn't get. I mean, we did the hand holding. We got some calls, but I think we only lost maybe one client over it.
Yeah, only one person is sold out at the bottom.
Yeah, they were just like, I can't, I'm getting too many butterflies and just, all cash. But the rest of them, that was the big thing is that, these dips are going to happen. Every single chart you look at, it goes up and down. And this is a down, it's gonna go back up. History shows us back, like Gary likes to say, 18, what's
18.
your year?
For what?
Oh, like when our chart starts at work.
The earliest chart is like, I think 1820.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
you
it's not just.
The main chart is
history.
1926.
So you've got a historical perspective, and you tell your prospective clients, know up front, you could lose. Know up front that there are going to be some rough patches, but overall, so basically the kind of investor that you really want is someone who, for their own benefit, is temperamentally able to hang in there during the tough times, is not impulsive. Is that the way you find most?
Yeah. To me, there's the two best ways to do investing. The number one best way is to have a good asset allocation mix, which is geared for your goals and your risk tolerance. Okay, like we've been saying ad nauseum during this class. And you rebalance that periodically. Now, whether you do it on a calendar basis, like every quarter or every year or something like that, but you want to rebalance it because or else stocks are going to be making a big part of your portfolio while they go up. And now you're overweighted in the stocks, and the large part of your portfolio is going to drop like a rock whenever you have a bad stock time. So you want to rebalance to keep that from happening. Okay? But that requires you to be selling the stuff that's doing good and buying the stuff that's doing bad. That's in essence what you're doing when you're rebalancing. Okay? That's tough for some people. So the second best way to do it is to just build your asset allocation mix and ignore it. Okay? Now, getting people to ignore their investments, that's almost harder than getting them to buy when it's low and sell when it's high. But, that's the second. And we've got clients that honestly, they have no clue what's happening in their investments. They absolutely ignore it. And they're much easier to do. Yeah, unfortunately, they ignore anything we're trying to get them to do.
And we're like, I think we really need to talk with you. Oh, you're doing fine.
Yeah, but we need this signed or else the IRS is not going to like you next year. So please sign this one and open up that envelope. So you wanna. You're right. You need to have, as Warren Buffett says, and I paraphrased this before, and I'm going to mess up the paraphrase again. It's basically when others are selling, you want to be buying. When others are buying, you want to be selling. That's just rebalancing. Okay. Now he does a little different. He overbuys when everybody's selling. He oversells when everybody's buying. That's just his style. It's a little more aggressive style, but it works. But he also does not panic when things aren't working out. And I don't think we've ever seen Warren panic about anything. So
I understand his wife allocates his breakfast money on the basis of how his portfolio is done that day. She actually gives him an allowance for breakfast and some drive-in, and it's predicated upon what a particular investment is done that day. So she kind of holds the purse strings in the household.
Now, from a personality standpoint, I would not like Warren Buffett. I mean, it's nothing against Warren Buffett. It's just his lifestyle and eating habits and everything else is just not recommended. But it's he's almost a Lord Nelson as far as that goes. But at the same time, for what he does, he's really good at it. Now he's actually been average for about the last 15 years or so, but average is better than most people do. So it's just
They have a real fun stockholders meeting in Omaha every year.
what I want to do is just go there and get the free C's candy. But
Yeah.
and thank you, Warren, for keeping C's candy going. It's my favorite candy. Birthday in 20 days. Feel free to go down to Dallas, buy me some C's candy. It's incredibly expensive.
You can get it at Nebraska Furniture Mart.
I'm sorry?
See's Candy at Nebraska Furniture Mart. I don't know about the one that's down in the metro area,
Probably can, I would imagine. It's big
Right.
enough.
but I know in Omaha at Nebraska Furniture Mart, they sell See's Candy.
The thing is with See's Candy, there's a standalone one off of MacArthur that you can go to. The shopping center just south of whatever freeway that is. What is that, 183 or something? No, I'll go this way. There's no reason for you to walk away. Okay, so this is the point where I am opening the floor to questions. I've got other stuff I can cover, but what is it y'all want to know? It doesn't have to be about anything we've covered. As long as it has something to do with money tangentially, I'm cool with it. Because I brought my expert in everything non-investing. And so any questions you got on anything. Otherwise, I just go on with something else.
The, how do you get how does the money come to you if you've invested in things? Okay, let's say you're 70 and a half, you have to do
Your required minimum distribution.
or just say I'm retired now, and for example, I would like to get a check in the mail every month.
Okay, let's say you have an IRA,
Yeah.
and you're now retired, and you'd like to replace your paycheck with money coming from your IRA. You probably have Social Security coming in as well.
Yeah.
You have a teacher's retirement coming in, so you need a little bit extra from that.
Yeah.
That's why you had the investments in the first place to make it comfortable.
Right. It doesn't have to be a lot. I
Yeah,
just want to go to the mailbox and
Right.
get a check.
Yeah. It's extremely easy.
Or to
Yeah, so it's extremely easy. All you do is, and some of the specific mechanics depends on where you have your money at. But let's just pretend that you've got one of these asset allocation funds. So you have one security that you have to worry about, okay? And it's an IRA, so any dividends and capital gains tend to get reinvested usually is how they have it set up. So you can basically just, there'll be a form usually online, but you can call them up and do it. And you'll say, I want you to liquidate $500 a month of this fund and send me a check.
Oh, really?
And they will liquidate $500 a month of that fund and send you a check until there's no more fund left. Okay, or until you tell them make it 600, stop it for 3 months, whatever. Okay, it's that easy. Now, with an IRA, every time a check comes out, that's a taxable distribution. Okay, so now if it's a Roth, the tax is zero, so it can't matter. In a traditional IRA, it's going to add to your ordinary income that year and get taxed at whatever tax bracket you're in.
Let's just say Roth for this.
Right. Roth, then it comes out tax-free.
Okay, so
So you guys get to spend the whole 500. You don't have to save anything
so
for
I'm
taxes.
getting 500 either in a check in my mailbox or direct deposit
Yeah.
to my bank.
And most people do direct deposit these days.
I personally like a paper check.
And they will send you a paper check. Realize that the investing community is there to try to get you to let them play with your money.
Yeah.
Okay? And then they charge you for playing with your money.
So how
So
much are they going to
if-
charge me for this having 500?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, I'm not going to say nobody charges for it. I just don't know anybody that charges for it currently. I'm sure there's some little podunk place that will charge you for that kind of stuff. Now, if it's a traditional IRA, they can also withhold taxes at whatever rate you tell them to. Okay, you don't have to have the taxes withheld, but you're going to owe the taxes on it. So it's often convenient. You might take out I'll take out $600. You hold back $100 for the IRS. Give me the $500, or you hold back 22% for the IRS. They'll make the calculation. Give me the rest.
Okay.
They'll do that for you. And if kind of but I need a little extra right now because Christmas is coming up. So send me an extra $1,000. That's fine. Yes,
You just
and most of this stuff's online,
Oh,
but you can also call them to do it.
okay.
Another thing it's good to look at is if it is coming from an annuity, setting up a monthly distribution, you may incur processing fees, maybe a quarterly or a biannual. would be better, so you're not incurring
So
additional
if there
fees.
are fees.
A
Yeah,
lot
so-
of them won't, but some of them
Yeah,
can.
you guys got to find out from the firm specifically.
So it's not a difficult thing to do.
It's easy. It's incredibly easy. The key is to figure out what your portfolio can sustain,
Yes.
or how long. So either what number can it sustain for the likely length of time I'm going to need this. And remember, don't go actuarial table, because that means 50-50 chance of failure. Okay, so you can't assume I'm going to die at 82 because that's what the actuarial table says. No, that says the average person dies by then, which means half of them are dead, half of them are still living. And if you happen to be unlucky and still living, you're still going to need the money. So you might want to pick a date like in your mid to late 90s.
Okay.
What rate of distribution can that handle? Is it $500 a month? Is it $1,000? Is it $3? What can it legitimately handle? There's all sorts of arguments about what that number is. Okay.
Like the 3.5%.
Yeah, the 3.5. I may have mentioned 3.5 or 4%. That's gonna work more than likely. It really depends what you're invested in too, because somebody might be invested almost all in income instruments, like 80% income, just a little bit of stocks, or maybe no stocks at all. 3.5, 4% is not going to cut it. You got to drop it way down because you're not giving me the growth from your portfolio. So there's going to be a bit of research, or go and get advice as far as what the number is. Or you can say, I just want this. It'll be nice to have. I don't need it, but I want it. And then it's just kind of like it keeps coming out till it's empty, and then you stop doing whatever it is you were doing with that money. If it was more optional stuff, and so you can play with it as far as that goes. You can go with it either way. But the key is you want to know, what you're doing. You don't want to assume that this is sustainable and it's not. Because a lot of people will leave an employer and they've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a 401k.
Yeah.
Or even $1 million. A lot of people come out of 401ks, $1 million. Working in the same company for a long time, or they've been rolling it over from company to company. And they think, oh, $1 million, my goodness, how can I ever spend that amount of money? And 5 years later, they're down to 300,000. This guy, you can spend $1 million. It's not that hard. And often what they spend it on has fees associated with it, boats and houses and that kind of stuff. So they're increasing their expenses as well as using the principal. So you got to have an idea of what that can actually support. $1 million can probably support about $40,000 a year, maybe 50 if you're old.
And that's where we get sometimes where someone says, I just need $1 million until I retire. And we kind of back into that and say, well, what are you going to be spending that on? Because if the first year you're going to be drawing, $250,000 out, then it's not going to be sustainable for that period of time. So it's important to look at those goals that you have, whether it's not outliving your retirement funds, looking at providing health care if you do want to travel, all those different goals that we looked at before.
Or something I find a lot is I'll just use $1 million and the 40,000 thing. Again, specific circumstances are going to change those numbers. But let's say you're drawing the 40,000 a year and stuff from your $1 million portfolio and stuff. And by the way, the portfolio is going to be going up, except like eights and stuff. But it's going to be going up across time. It's not till to way in retirement that it starts dropping down and digging into principal long term. I mean, it'll dig into principal a little bit if you have some bad stuff happening early, but that's why you're only drawing 4. You're not drawing like 8. Where 4 can easily do 8 if you don't hit a bad market. But you can't tell the markets, I'm not going to have you. I do not receive you. You will not be part of me. You kind of no, they're going to do what they want to do, right? So if you happen to be alive during the 00 years or the 07 or 09 years and stuff like that, and you're going to be losing money those years, and you're making negative returns, and so 4% looks like, oh my goodness, I'm drawing way too much out. No, you're not, because we're basing it on what the figure is going to be. But what I see is people draw, maybe nicely draw out the 40,000 a year. And by the way, that's an inflation adjusted number. So you keep raising it with how your cost of living raises. Okay. You always want to think inflation adjusted because inflation is going to be there. So you always want to think inflation adjusted. But the issue is then they say, and we need an extra $20,000 now for a car.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's fine, but realize the corpus you have, the principal has now gone down abnormally by 20,000. That was not calculated in. That 40,000 was supposed to be for everything. That taxes on the stuff coming out, no fair taking $40,000 out of an IRA and then pulling another $10,000 for the taxes on it. That's not a $40,000 withdrawal. That's a $50,000 withdrawal. Which is fine if your account can handle that, but if your account can only handle a $40,000 withdrawal, really it's the after-tax money you get to spend, but the portfolio doesn't know your after-tax, pre-tax. It just knows you're sucking money out of it. Okay. At whatever rate it is, whether it's for taxes or for you, it doesn't care. It just cares that you're sucking money out of it. So if you're going to be taking those one-time expenses that for many of our clients seem to show up twice a year, but those one-time expenses, then that has to be factored in your draw. It's kind of like I'm going to draw $20,000 normally, and that allows me $20,000 in one-time expenses during the year. Okay? So realize that the $1 million looks like a big number, but then people multiply spend it. I'm going to set up an ordinary income stream based on this. I'm going to give gifts to my kids based on this number. I'm going to do those one-time expenses, those trips or whatever, the cars, whatever, with this number. And now you've got 3 different income streams. Some are chunked, some are one-time, some are continuous, coming off the same $1 million that was only designed to satisfy one. Now, you were not adjusting your numbers for the other things you were doing. So you gotta be very careful about that. Because $1 million looks like a lot of money.
Certainly does to me.
Yeah.
Until the healthcare says it's $100,000 a year we need from you.
Yeah.
That's the big help.
They've guesstimated now. Well, it's not good. Actually, they run numbers. For the average couple, about $250,000 across your lifetime for medical. That includes insurance, Medicare, and out-of-pockets and stuff. About $250,000. We're assuming you retire at 65. For some reason, it's still use 65, even though nowadays it's moving up. Yeah, I'm 66 in 6 months. Michelle's gonna be 67 or whatever they turn it
I
into.
don't think so. Really? Seriously?
No,
My effort,
her
full
retirement age.
retirement age is 67.
Oh, your retirement.
She is not 67 years old.
67?
No, that's what I didn't think, but he said
That
she's
is a
gonna
lot of plastic
I know,
surgery.
that's what I was thinking. No, you're not possible.
She stays out of the sun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you said she's 67,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Forget about talking about that.
What makeup do you use?
When Gary said I'm 66 and Michelle's 67, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
He's
so
not 66 either.
I'm 61 and 9,500. Anyway, so that's what we got here? Our retirement plan.
Oh, we were talking about that.
Okay. So since we were talking about it, might as well have the slides up because this is one of those subtopics we could talk about. And people come in all the time and they'll say kind of like, we want to find out how much we need to save for retirement. I say, okay, how much are you going to spend in retirement? Okay, silence hits the room. And what's interesting is I could have a 66-year-old person who's about to retire come in, and I can ask that exact same question, and they give me the exact same blank stare answer. Most people haven't a clue what they're going to spend in retirement because most people don't know what they're spending now. Okay? When we do financial planning, of course, we care about current income as well. Retirement planning is like later income. But we'll say, okay, list out, all your expenses. We'll give them some categories and stuff and things, and they'll come back and Michelle, you tell this story because you're the one who gets hit by it all the time.
Yeah, it's I had one come in. I'll give you an example. I had someone come in and we gave them a printout and it was similar to this and it had the categories and it had for just 1 month. And it was talking about, what is your mortgage rent, what is your electricity, what is your gas and car insurance, and they could not figure it out. And they were like, well, it changes. Our electric bill changes some. In the summer it's more, in the winter it's less. And he said, what's the average? Well, I don't know. Well, is it this last month? So we had to kind of back into it. So we really absolutely had no idea of what spending that they had. And so what we ended up doing is just kind of reverse engineering. I said, how much do you make? How much are you saving? Or what's left over at the end of the month? And if there's nothing, that's what you're spending or more. And so we also went back and looked at credit cards, and obviously they weren't paying those off each month. So we did have to go in and do a lot of digging. But most of them have no idea what they're spending. What we started doing now is using a service similar to, I don't know if y'all use any of the electronic services like Mint or Every Dollar, or there's Personal Capital, where you can, it's an account aggregation system where you can tie your bank account, your credit cards, your debit card, everything, you log it into this one system, and it pulls it all together. And then it'll show, and I pull my
It tries to categorize stuff. It knows electric companies probably for electricity and grocery stores probably for groceries and stuff. Some things it doesn't know, and
Right.
you may have to help it a little bit.
It makes it easier because then that way we can look at it. And so we have a system with our financial planning side that we have an advisor login that we can actually go in and we say, put your information in here so we can go in and categorize it for you, because they have not a clue what's going on. And right here, it does a budgeting. Well, not anymore. It just logged me out. But it does a budgeting where it breaks it down like that for you. So we can actually go in and see what's being spent on what, and then we can back into it to do that. But yeah, when we look at future spends or expenses, if you can't tell me what you're spending now, there's no way that I'm expecting future expenses. And oftentimes those are roughly the same. You don't just because you quit working, your expenses don't drop in half. Just because you lose a spouse, the mortgage company didn't call me up and say, since only two of you were living there, now only one, we're just going to cut that bill in half. That doesn't happen. With your electric, your water, your car insurance, it doesn't all get cut in half. So your expenses pretty much stay the same, whether you're in retirement, whether you're a widow or widower, regardless. And so to have that idea of what your expenses actually are now, we can kind of determine those in the future, and possibly adding a little bit more in healthcare.
And many of the calculators and blogs and stuff will tell you spend about 60 to 65% of your pre-retirement income in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that. I have never seen that. In fact, early retirement often goes up.
Say that again?
Well, they'll say kind of like if you were making, if you were spending say $80,000 a year, okay, and that was just fine for you.
Say
That-
100, that's easier.
That when
Just say it.
yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna make this work. Okay, and so in retirement, 60,000 should be able to handle you just fine. And I don't know, for most of my retirees, now admittedly we tend to get typically a little higher incomes, middle class and above, but we'll see it, and it's kind of like the first year they're spending like 90 or 100. Because now they can do stuff they didn't have time to do before, right? They're taking the trips they couldn't take. They're spoiling the kids and stuff. They're, so they're doing stuff. They're, these days, the old, 70 is the old 60, what kind of thing is, they're more active. They can go not just on a cruise, but looking for the cruises with the zip lines and little parachutes running around the beaches and stuff. They're having fun, or they come to the LLC. I mean, I can't think of a better use of at least $200 a year of your money than to come here and learn stuff. So that they're doing stuff now. Now, the spending will go down eventually, because eventually we can't do things. But that's on average. I mean, you see them in the paper, and you probably have friends. You see some 90 and 95-year-olds that are more active than you are. They're more involved than you are.
The ones who have the RVs with a bumper sticker that says we're spending our children's
Yeah,
inheritance.
exactly. And so, we already gave enough money to the kids, right? Now it's our turn. So that that's the reality of it. And so you have to match that to you. But we send the sheets home with people to fill out and stuff. They come back and there's little things missing like clothes and groceries.
Yes.
So there got to be very skinny, naked
Oh.
people running around in retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a client come in and they were very detailed. I mean, he brought a binder in, he had a spreadsheet. I mean, they had everything on it. And he was very proud of himself. And I start looking through it, and the first thing I see is there's no clothing, there's no food, and there was no gas for the car. And I said, so you're running around, obviously you're not naked and hungry. And so you forgot this on there. And that was something that he just, that was just normal. And he didn't think of that. But he had like the piano lessons, he had everything else in there but food. And when we looked at that and, what they spend on clothing, I mean, that added, another almost $2,000 a month.
My wife bought the groceries, I guess.
Yeah, well, they were a bigger family, but yeah, I was like, wow, that is shocking
And
that you would forget something like that.
From a financial planning perspective, the best thing you do is keep track of your budget. Now, I don't think you have to necessarily be on a budget. A lot of people self-manage just fine. They have a good feel for it and stuff. Anybody who's never run a budget on themselves is going to be surprised about something in it. Okay? The first time I ran mine, it's kind of like, I'm spending how much on restaurants every month? I mean, and it wasn't that we couldn't afford it. It's just that seemed like a really big number to me. And it seemed like a big number to my wife too. So we began eating out a little bit less and shifting money somewhere else. But it's if you don't know where your money is going, how do you really begin controlling it? It's like if you find that you're getting a lot of stomach upset, okay? It's really hard to figure out what might be contributing to it if you don't know where you're eating. Mm-hmm. So, but nobody likes having to fill out those little forms as far as tracking what you're eating and stuff to try to see if there's any link between what you're eating in a particular week and how your acid reflux is going or whatever. But that's what you need to do to figure it out, or you live with the problem. Okay, and the same thing with money. If you don't know where the money is going, you can't figure out what the problem is, or even if there's no problem, where you might be able to make it more efficient. I mean, how many people, buy your insurance from the same person forever? Okay, and there's some loyalty stuff. They may be your best friend, go to church with them, whatever. Again, and that's fine. But every now and then, go get another quote. I mean, quotes are really easy to get. People are falling over themselves trying to give you quotes. So just say yes to one of them and see what the difference is. That doesn't mean you go to them, because it's kind of like, yes, you will save me, $200 a year, but the service this particular person gives me is worth to me the $200 a year. Fine, okay. But if you find that I could save $1,000 a year over here, then you might want to go to your friend and say, hey, is there something we can do? And they may say, well, they weren't quoting you this. It's kind of like, well, I don't need that anymore. You don't? Because you never actually answered your friend whenever he sent the thing that said, time for your annual insurance review, and you always blow that off and stuff. It's not just to try to sell you more insurance, although they hope to. Okay, it's also to see if there's policies you have that you really don't need anymore. So and assuming this person is doing a good job, they're looking for both stuff they need to add or take away as far as your insurance goes, both. Now, if they're just one of those evil Wall Street people, because insurance companies also list on Wall Street, then that's something else. But they're obviously not the ones you typically have loyalty to. So.
And I do want to piggyback on what Gary said about that, about having someone kind of review your strategies, regardless if it's investing or looking at your insurance or
taxes.
And that was what I had here. Tax impact. Because when we're looking at DIY stuff, when we look at financial planning, you're looking at taxes, retirement planning, cash flow analysis. I mean, you're dealing with so many different things. And when you're looking at DIY investing, yeah, you may be able to do this part, but what is it going to be impacting on these other things? And we actually had someone come in that, we know because she's a client of ours. And she had called up, it was about a year ago, and said, she has 3 kids. And she said, I'm going to change my beneficiaries on my IRA to my one kid and one daughter. And I know that she didn't have like this big falling out with the other two. And so just because I know her, I said, if you don't mind me asking, why? Why are we doing this? And she said, well, I talked with them over the holidays and they don't need the money, so I would like to donate it to charity. And so I'm gonna give it to my one daughter and she's going to divvy it up. And I said, that's a terrible idea, not giving it to charities. I mean, that's fantastic, be as philanthropic as you want. But to give it to your daughter to do that, you are now making that a tax impact on her. Because if she inherits that IRA, becomes a beneficiary IRA, and if she doesn't give out the whole lump sum at once to all the charities, let's say it's $100,000, she now has to claim $100,000 of income. The charities are getting it for free, but she's going to be taxed on that. If she waits and gives it out, annually, that's going to be a required minimum distribution until the account is fully liquidated. And the required minimum distribution is income to her. And so if you give it directly to the charities, there's no tax implication. And she said, I am so happy I called you first because she was changing it on her bank accounts. She was changing it on her life insurance. And that would have been, if we looked at the total amount, that could have easily have been a $50,000, $60,000 tax, impact on her. And so by doing it yourself like that, and a lot of these places, I know whenever I changed my beneficiaries and whenever, I called into my life insurance and I said, what form do I need? It's online. If I had printed that form or she had printed that form and sent it in without having that overview,
Yes.
or someone checking it, knowing the situation and knowing her particulars, then it could have screwed everything up big time. And same thing with people. It could be totally, she wasn't trying to get by or get something by on anyone. It was just she didn't know the rules and the regulations on that. Same thing with adding a child or someone to a checking account or savings account where, okay, if something happens, my mom did this. If something happens to me, Michelle, you are on my account and, you can write checks. And her husband have like his, hers, and ours account. So I'm on hers, he's not. But she knew that money, according to the will, is going to go to him. And I said, absolutely not. If I'm joint with right of survivorship, it goes to me. It's non-probatable assets. And so that could be something as well. If she added if this lady had added a child, that daughter to the account to do that, it wouldn't have been going to charity. It would have been a non-probatable asset. The will has nothing to do with it at that point. So to have that oversight and kind of going in like an annual doctor appointment, you don't have to do what you're doing. We know that doctor's going to say exercise and eat less. We know it, and yet we still order pizza and sit on the couch. And so it's those types of things. So having that oversight and someone saying, okay, this is what I recommend, and even if you don't want to do that, at least it's in the back of your mind and say, this is what could happen if you do that. And so going in and doing a financial annual checkup or even a biannual checkup, or, every, I think even 5 years. Same thing with your will, having your beneficiaries looked at, checking up your investments to see how they're doing. And 5 years is a long time to go without making any tweaks on that. It could, there could be some other things out there too. So if you want to do it on your own, fine. Even I was talking to Judy and I said, I redid my cabinets last week. That's why I wasn't here. And I looked, I didn't call and get professional help from a cabinetry maker, but I was YouTubing the crap out of that stuff to make sure that I did it right. And so getting that oversight and that, that overview isn't a bad idea even if you are DIYing it. So.
That's good.
That I think that for our members that kind of question, like the lady had, is because some of this investing is kind of done, so I think those questions are.
Those can make or break a plan very easily.
Yes, yeah, and the kind of what happens isn't really if, but when one of the spouses passes, and sometimes the other surviving spouse gets a big chunk of money.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's the other way, you know, that a big chunk of money is gone, that, you know, with like a retirement account or.
Mhm.
We've seen that a few times.
And so this is a real change of life.
Mhm.
Either way, it's gonna be a very change of life. If you get a big, insurance, you know, life insurance thing that comes to the surviving spouse, or if there's a big impact, on the surviving spouse from loss of income, that those questions, do you deal with those in your?
Yeah, and ironically, when not so much, we've had some. I say unfortunately because it is unfortunate, but we've had some younger widows.
And you had that experience.
And I've had that experience.
Yeah.
But we've had a couple younger widows coming through now, and so they're a little bit more apt to stay on top of finances because that's kind of what they were together doing them.
Yeah.
But if we see some older retirees that come in that are newly widowed,
Yeah.
then a lot of them, like, I didn't handle this.
No,
So I don't know what I'm doing with that. My grandma was the same way.
Yeah.
She had,
I'm kind of that way.
well, she was like an authorized user on the credit cards. My grandpa did the banking stuff and went and ran around. And so he was like, she's an authorized user, gave her a card. She could do what she wanted. But whenever he passed, we went to, get the cards and stuff and change the accounts. And they said, you have no credit. And she said because she was the authorized user on it and she didn't ever have a card in her name at all.
Mhm.
And this was, years ago,
Yeah.
but I said, what do we do with that? It didn't dawn on me that that could be such an issue. I think now it's a little bit easier
I
to
think
deal
so.
with.
Yeah.
But she just didn't have anything in her name, so we had to end up getting a share secured card for her. And, she had the money in the bank and we're like, we could take it, or we
Yeah.
can make something happen. And so they did a share secured card and she still had her credit card and she still had a debit card, but, it's those types of things that you don't necessarily consider all the time.
No.
Which we take for granted.
Oh, you had it down here in this thing, cash flow problem.
Oh, that's the next one. You wanna do the next one, Gary?
Sure.
Cash flow problems.
Well, for the person dead, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, so when I'm dead, I have no cash flow problems. That has been eliminated. It's, looking forward to it actually, but it's
Whoa.
But you want your family to have.
theologically, it's not a bad thing. So cool with my theology. I think I'm going to end up okay. Don't deserve it, but I'm going to get it. So
There we go.
So that's that. But obviously, for the people left behind, it can be a rather large cash flow problem. I mean, if let's take a couple who's living purely off of Social Security. So we got his and her living off Social Security, traditional family now. So you had one main breadwinner. Let's be less gender biased. Let's make the female the major breadwinner. She's bringing in $2,000 a month in Social Security. Her spouse brings in $1,000 a month in Social Security. We got $3,000. One of them dies. We have now lost $1,000 in Social Security. We drop back down to the largest of the two. But with one being the non-working spouse, theirs would be calculated at zero. So the largest would be the working spouse. There's no other spouse to get 50% of that. So now we're down to 2,000. Now, while it's cheaper on a per person level for two people to live than one person to live, it's not that two live for the price of one. Okay? And one certainly doesn't live for the price of usually 2/3 of two, because you're down to like, okay, the person's dead, but at that stage in life, often they're either not driving or down to one car. So they're still either not driving or still down to one car. They're still probably going the same distance, so gas hasn't changed. Wherever they're living is going to be still heated to exactly the same amount or cooled to the same amount, so that hasn't changed. The place they live could change, but almost never does, so that hasn't changed. Food's going to be a little bit less, but there's economy of scale of food. So you can feed 2 people for a lot less than you feed 1. So that might be a break even, where I lost a third of my income effectively, but maybe I lost a third of my meal bill, so that might have gone down. Okay, the renters or house insurance has not gone down. Driving insurance might have a little bit, so that part of the driving, because we have only 1 driver. So you see, there's a couple things that go down. Maybe if that spouse had an expensive hobby, that completely goes away. But a lot of stuff still stays exactly the same. And if that was our only source of income, now we got a problem. I had it wasn't really a client. It came in for hourly advice. He was setting up his pensions as far as how he wanted it paid out upon his death. And he wanted nothing to go to his spouse. Because without having joint and survivor, you end up getting more money now. And he wanted more money now. My question was, what happens when you're dead? It's kind of like, that's her problem.
Whoa.
Okay? So imagine her surprise one of these days. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I haven't seen him in a decade. But when he dies, she'll lose a chunk of the Social Security. Okay? And it's really worse if you have 2 equal earners. Imagine both of them getting $2,000 a month in Social Security. One dies, now you're down to just the $2,000 a month. So, the going down by 1/3 is almost the best case scenario. But now this pension that she was counting on isn't there anymore. Okay, that's a problem. And she would have no idea that's happening. Okay? And now a lot of pensions you have to, if you're not going to have survivorship benefits on it, the spouse has to sign away the right. Okay, but guess what? How many spouses get pieces of paper shoved under their nose? Please sign this. I need this for some form, whatever. Okay, what's this about? It's just for the pension. We want to make sure we're all set for the pension. Okay, so she signs it, right? And it almost may be a hopeful situation in that kind of like, I the man who is controlling the finances of the house. I know that our retirement is not going to work if I have the joint and survivor. I need to have that extra money to make our ends meet because I didn't save for my entire life. So I need this money to make it work. Okay? And I just hope that she dies before me and we both die together. Okay? Like, hope springs eternal. Okay? That kind of hope doesn't buy the groceries. It's if he predeceases her. So he may have done it for what he thought was, I'm trying to make life easier for her now, and hopefully that thing in the future is not going to happen. Okay? But what if it does? And that's why we tend to be morbid all the time. Now we're gleefully morbid because we're always thinking, what's the worst case scenario? Okay? And we're killing people off on paper, and we're disabling them on paper. We're giving them Alzheimer's on paper and stuff. But because those things happen, and if that happens, and people say, well, that's probably not going to happen. It's kind of like, but what if it does? Okay.
So you go through all of those.
Yeah, and usually we get ignored. But still, we try. You need to get long-term care insurance. Well, I don't want to pay the money for it. Okay. What happens if you need long-term care? My wife will take care of me. If I need it, I'll take care of her if she needs it. What if you're both 98 years old? How are you going to take care of the other one? Well, that's probably not going to happen. Indeed, it's probably not going to happen if it does. Our kids will take care of us, okay? Have you talked this over with the kids about this? Which kid is going to take off from their job now to be the full-time caretaker for you all?
And the
who's
impact
do
that it will have on them
Yeah.
because they're not working and contributing to their retirement plan now or earning a higher Social Security level either. So by having that happen, you've now made it, and we don't want to make things better for our kids, and instead we've now made it worse for the child. And it could be at some point that, yes, we would love to take care of our spouses, but my late husband was 215 pounds and 6'2". And when he fell to the ground, I had to call the neighbor. I mean, I pride myself on being fairly strong, but that's, when you're picking up that much dead weight, at some point you're just physically incapable of doing that. So it's not that you don't want to do it, but you may be unable to. So that's why we look at long-term care, even if it's someone coming in, a little bit during the week to help out.
Now, is it expensive? Yeah. But for those people without the means, well, how are we going to get Medicaid to pay for it? Because Medicaid will pay for long-term care. But notice it's Medicaid, which is for basically people with no money.
Yeah,
So realize we're going to get to that point unless we do some Medicaid planning. And some people don't like the taste of Medicaid planning, but it's kind of like, okay, just spend down all your money, have nothing left for the non long-term care spouse. What is that person going to live on? Especially once you die and have already spent all the money down from all your investments to handle your long-term care.
And basically, on Medicaid, that basically means if I remember correctly, you only have $5,000 in assets. When you go to a nursing home, you're going to have a roommate you've never met before for the rest of your days.
Yeah, and you're not going to have the fancy nursing home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say that Medicaid beds are bad beds. It depends on the facility.
Exactly.
But the really good facilities might keep a couple Medicaid beds there, and it's really more for the people who have been with them for a while, and they run out of money because they just lived too long in long-term care, and we want some place to put them because we feel responsible for them.
Yes.
Nobody else is getting that bed.
Right.
You're not coming in from the outside and getting that Medicaid bed. It's for the people they know. Pretty much that's what Rolling Meadows does. I think they have like 2 Medicaid beds, but it's pretty much for people who have been at the Rolling Meadows for years.
Yeah, for sure. I know at Presbyterian Manor, they've got a deal where if you can walk in, you will never be kicked out. But you have to walk in, even if you're. But they also have a fairly high endowment based upon.
They have a really good endowment.
Yeah, based upon giving that they've had.
Yeah, Rolling Meadows endowment is way underfunded.
Yeah, I would think so.
They still do it. They eat into their operating expenses to basically provide the same thing.
Yeah.
They won't kick people out. They did that for my mom.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Something I did want to add to the taxes down here is that when you're married filing joint, you get that extra $12,500. And when you are single, your expenses don't go down, but yet your standard deduction does by about half. And so that was a huge surprise. Well, I mean, I knew it.
And your tax bracket might go up.
And your tax bracket
At
may
the same
be
time.
going up
As
too.
you're single, yeah.
So that was a huge, I knew that it would happen, but when it hit, I was like, holy crap. I didn't realize that I'm still spending this exact same amount, but yet I get to claim a lot less. So I ended up for the first time owing in on that, even though we'd always gotten refunds.
Yeah.
And especially when you often get hit with both. Your tax bracket goes up and you lose a lot of your deductions.
And a lot of your income.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there are those holy cow moments always recur. Like I found out that I've got prescription Plan D prescription medication, and I don't take a single prescription medicine, but that rate doubled for 2020, which is quite a surprise. I thought, wow. So there's always shocks that suddenly appear.
Another one I noticed was my car insurance, because we canceled the car insurance and we had 2 vehicles, and we were getting that multi-car discount. So it didn't cut it in half. For the total, I'm saving $15 a month now? This is ridiculous. I was surprised. I was expecting it to be a bit more, but with the discount on it, I ended up losing that discount. So it's those little things that you don't consider, and you're stuck with it. And when you are already grieving and trying to figure all this out and trying to anticipate the next year's expenses and trying to create a new budget and figuring out taxes and figuring out cash flow analysis, and figuring out retirement, and healthcare and annuities and inflation, and all these other things that go along with it, it can be quite overwhelming.
Plus,
And you were not, I mean, you had something.
And I'm in the business, and
You
I
got
was
the
still
business.
shocked.
plus we're an aging society, so you don't have as many people, younger people paying into Social Security. We're in Medicare, so smaller and smaller pool of people is going to have to pay more and more expenses.
Don't worry, Congress will fix it.
Yeah. The next, the presidential promise.
For those not here, Gary is being his normal sardonic. So and something here. See this annuities and inflation? They tie together. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about insurance annuities, although it usually works the way there. But your pension plan is an annuity. Okay. Now, government pension plans. Okay. Federal government pension plans have an inflation adjustment built into it. Social Security, which effectively is a federal government sponsored pension plan, is a annuity that has a cost of living feature in it. If you ask, I don't know, a retired teacher how the cost of living raises are going with their, I think when I first started the business was about the last year they had cost of living increases. Most states have taken away the cost of living increases on their pensions because they just can't afford it. The government can't literally print money if it needs to. The states are not allowed to do that. So realize that there could be a number of income streams you have where inflation goes up, but the income stream does not go up with it. Now, Social Security, federal pensions and stuff, that's nice, currently at least. But is it going to be enough when you consider other things? Well, maybe not. And that's where it's like right now I just got a quote for an immediate fixed annuity, which is basically what most people think of as far as annuities. You're basically building your own little pension plan by giving the insurance company money. They pay the equivalent of like about 6.8%. Well, that's great. I mean, that's better than maybe somebody's portfolio did or whatever. But that's fixed. So you got $1 million, it starts paying out in that case, $68,000 a year. It's a heck of a lot better than the 40,000 I was quoting. But 25 years later, it's still paying out 68,000. The problem is there is no inflation adjustment on it at all. It's not that you can't get an inflation rider on it, but it is incredibly expensive. Because don't forget, the insurance companies are not in the business to lose money. They need to make sure that what they figure they're going to pay you is less than what they're charging you, or else they go out of business. What they're taking away is the risk of the money running out. They're not taking away the risk that the money isn't enough to pay for what you needed to pay for. They're not guaranteeing that. Not against annuities again. Useful tool for whatever goal you're trying to make. Just got to match.
I've got an 11:30 meeting.
That's okay. 11:30 is when the class normally ends. We just drug it to 12:30 in case it got long-winded like I did. I don't know, last week.
No, y'all are.
And the week before.
Listen, I
But,
have to leave, but y'all.
yeah.
But
What I'm saying is that the class is officially over, but I will stay as long as necessary to answer any questions anybody has.
Gary, Michelle, you were awesome. Thank you so much. After I finish my appointment, if y'all are still talking, I'll come back. Because I'm going to play some more about being retired. Yeah, please do that. That'd be a real big example.
Yeah, we want a case study to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you what, go over your daughter's line item when she plans her wedding.
Whoa!
Yes,
That's right, you had a wedding.
I did.
That's one of those events that really.
It's going to be a while recording that investment. So. Hey, Gary, Michelle, you two are great. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, I don't have a daughter, so I know what I would have done is kind of like, here's 10,000. You want anything else? Go work.
Figure it out.
But I'm sure Mom would have had a different idea on that.
Get very expensive.
Yeah, guys don't dream about the wedding they want. That's not in our vocabulary.
But actually, as far as investments go, if you aren't talking just monetary investments, investing in your daughter's wedding is probably a good thing to do.
It depends what kind of return you get.
Well, I don't mean you have to give them, you
Yeah.
know, the top of the line and everything, but I remember being at our daughter's reception and someone in our family remarked about their cruises that they had lined up. And I remember looking around and saying, this is our cruise right here, this wedding. And given the choice, I'd rather spend it on that wedding than a cruise.
And then
That's just me.
And that's perfect. That's a perfect thing. You would this is worth more to you than a cruise is, and so you allocate the money there. What I've seen is though where people like are basically they're spending money they don't have.
Yes.
Okay. Now they may have the money, kind of like I've got this money set aside. The wedding's going to cost us $100,000. I have $450,000. We can afford the wedding. Okay. But it's kind of like, okay, but what about your retirement? Well, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Like, okay, but where's the money going to come from for retirement?
Or college savings. We see that a lot too, where parents want to, we want to pay for our kids' college so they don't have to get saddled with student loan debt.
Right.
And so you're sacrificing retirement for that. And you can get a student loan, but you can't get a retirement loan.
So
So-
that's the kind of discussion you have with your clients. So,
And as I told you, I think the first week is, we've seen people where the parents keep bailing their adult kids out of issues, and they end up having no retirement savings at all, no savings of any kind. It's all gone. Where they could have lived a nice, comfortable retirement, nothing extravagant, but a nice, comfortable retirement and stuff. They're down to living basically only off of Social Security, and even then, the kids want some of that.
wow. Now, I would imagine that most of your clients are clients that have some kind of retirement plan or some have had some wealth building, so they come for advice. But if you have a client like that, is there anything you can do? If
Well, one of the things we had yesterday come in, he had been working at a job for a very long time and didn't save up a whole lot, but he did have a pension or I think it was a 401k there. And he had been contributing to it. He made a point of doing that. And he said, I don't want this job anymore. I've been there for 20 years. I can't stand it. I need to find something else. I can't do the hours. I'm working nights. I'm working 12, 14-hour days. I physically can't do it. And so he found another job. We ran a plan to make sure, if you find another job, even if it's part-time, this is the dollar amount you're going to need to make each year or each month even. And that will allow you to postpone your drawing Social Security early.
yes.
And possibly, since you're married, postponing it until the age of 70 so we can secure that for the life as well. And so we got that planned out. He got another job offer. He came in and he was so excited. He came in during our staff meeting, was like, I just had to stop by and tell you, and was just gleaming. And he came by yesterday and said, I just got laid off. 2 days before my 2 months. And he said, now I'm not looking for something else. And what options do we have?
Yeah.
And, it was like, well, let's look at, drawing unemployment if you can do that, or we may have to draw Social Security earlier, which means that you may have to work a little bit longer than you had initially wanted. But yeah, it's those types of things. So not necessarily people coming in that have this either windfall or inheritance, but a lot of wealth is people have contributed 401ks. They may not have cash flow or be cash flow rich while they're still working, but they're dumping money into this, and then they're like, I have this pot of money. I have no idea what to do with it. Because I'm going to pull it out of this safe thing that only had like 10 or 20 choices in, and now there's, 40, 50,000, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so that's where we'll see some of those, but we do investment management and financial planning, and we even do financial counseling for those that
I
know,
figured,
they're
yeah.
just like, because we have 2 certified credit counselors in the office,
Oh.
and I'm one.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that's one of the things is we look at helping
So
create
it's not
budgets.
just investing that your office does.
No, we do the full thing. We
Okay.
do, whether you have to figure out a budget, we help walk through that so you can get things in order. And that's one of the things that we talked about with on the second week was getting your debt in a manageable situation. Let's do that. Then establish the emergency fund. Then make sure that you have, what you already have accumulated is protected. And then we can look at those goals. And those goals, one of them being retirement planning and investing. And so before we even get to that point,
Yes.
you really need to have this foundation. And then once you get enough to where you can start putting it back some in savings, whether it's in the 401k or a taxable account or a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA or a 403b or an annuity or whatever it is, we need to have this foundation so if something does happen, you have that emergency fund. You have this other stuff that you can do. And that goes into also with your Social Security planning. When can I draw it? Do I have to draw it at 62 or 66 in 4 months or 67? When is it that I can, if possible, let's postpone it if it makes sense. We can run the numbers and figure out that break-even point. And we've seen some that were like, draw it now. You don't need to wait. So.
And for a good half the population, they need to draw as soon as they can.
As soon as they can.
Yes.
And when do you have to draw?
70.
70 and a half.
No, 70.
70.
70.
Traditional IRAs, RMDs are at 70 and a half.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
But Social Security is 70.
Okay,
Because
so-
they like using different numbers to confuse us.
So if you just don't go down to the Social Security office or go online,
They're not gonna send it to you.
they're not
Yeah,
gonna send it
let-
to
let
you.
I guess the way to say it is this, is if you don't go down, they're not gonna send it to you, but it does not increase what you were gonna
Okay,
get.
so I could
So you're
still
le-
wait
you're
until
basically giving them
75,
money.
but I'm not gonna.
But you're
give
being
you
very
more.
stupid, yes.
Yes,
So don't do that.
Okay.
Unless you're gonna live to 100, for sure.
Well, yes, but you
If
would,
it's not increasing.
you might as well be
obviously,
getting
Yeah.
that money. Would it make a difference?
Because you don't get any increases after 70.
You don't get
In
any
loss.
increases.
Yeah.
But how about if you have a job that you're paying into Social
You
Security?
you pay into it, which will
Right.
increase. Like there are many people who are drawing Social Security who are still working. Okay,
Right, and so does
and
that
what it
increase
does is
their-
it increases what they're drawing. So because assuming they're replacing old lower years with new higher years.
Right,
If they're working part-time and those part-time amounts are lower than the counting years that they have,
yeah.
then it makes no effect at all. But if they're working and they're earning more than they have back in their history,
Yeah.
which most people do, then it actually will increase going across time.
Yeah, we've had a lot
But
of,
that would increase whether you're drawing your Social Security or not, right? I mean.
Right, effectively, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no point, there is no gain in waiting till you're 75.
No, well, you never want to wait to 75 because you've given up 5 years of earnings and you can't get that back.
You can't get that back, that's right.
You can go back 6 months, which is where your 7.5 may come from, but you can't go back. You can't go back past that.
And so you need to apply for it shortly before you turn 70, I
Right.
guess, so that it kicks.
And don't forget to apply for Medicare before 65,
Yeah,
even if you're still working. Some people miss that one.
I know. Well, if you think I haven't missed it, then, well, thank you. I did do that one, but they will hardly let you miss it. I can't believe how many reminders and stuff that.
and yet people still miss it.
Really? Oh, okay. I just felt like that was something that they just kept sending postcards or
Sure.
something.
And
You can
yeah.
ignore anything.
Yeah, you can.
Well, that's true.
You can-
I have ignored things.
Or think, oh, this is junk mail, this is
Or
whatever.
I think
junk
it's
mail.
junk mail, yes. Yes, I think it's junk mail. And so you are okay with those places like Mint as far as safety?
Yeah, Mint, Gary uses Mint,
I
doesn't
use
he?
Mint, yeah.
Yeah, there's Mint, there's Personal Capital that I've looked at. Every dollar has a few
Or
more.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's the Dave Ramsey one, and if you want to do the account integration like that or aggregation, I think they charge like $10 a month or something,
Oh.
so that's not a free one.
Uh-huh.
They do have, Mint does, it's free, some little pop-ups that, you know, you can exit
And
out.
how much do you have to, you link it to your accounts,
Right.
right? And do you link it to your bills?
Yep.
Or?
Well, you're linking
Bills
it
come
up.
out of something.
Yeah, so it's
Okay,
gonna
so
see the
that's-
bill get
oh,
paid.
so okay.
Unless it's like.
If it's a credit card bill, though, it knows, it'll say kind of like your credit card bill's coming due here.
Here, okay.
Yeah.
So it'll give you reminders. Now, if you write a check out for electric or gas
Right.
or water, then it's not going to see, you know, that it's City of Wichita Falls
No.
water. So you'll have to go in and on that particular, it'll say check number, blah, blah,
Check
blah.
number, and then you have.
And then you can link that and adjust it and say water.
So you wouldn't have to do, like some of these sites that track your calories and things, you have to put in what you ate for breakfast and all that.
No,
kind of
this
stuff.
you would link, like for my Union Square, I logged in Union Square, I put my credit card in from Chase, I put my city card in, and then I put my Texoma account, my USAA, and I can pull it up right now and see it even tracks your, I think Zillow's connected to Mint, isn't it? I know my USAA has my house value on it too.
I don't have
But
Zillow
it
connected because it
has,
overprices my house by $40,000.
Yeah, so it can show you your house value.
I wish I could get what
assets.
Zillow thinks my house is worth.
I know, yeah. That it does your house value. It can do your like my TD Ameritrade accounts. Those are linked to them as well. So
Okay.
it's kind of this is your overview of
Okay.
everything that you have, and then you can see. But it'll send you reminders. Your city bill is due on the 20th, or you know your Verizon bill is coming due. So I can link my Verizon account. I can link everything on there. I can link my.
And so instead of having to enter each little thing you spend,
Well,
it's
see, that's what I
scraping all the
thought
information
that
out.
is-
It may miscategorize some things.
Yes, but.
Like depending
but
on the
you don't
name of it,
have
I've had stuff
everything
listed
you
as
spend.
like groceries when it was books,
Okay.
or it'll
United.
say that this is like a vacation when it was actually it was I forget what that one was, but anyway, not even close as far as categorization goes. But you'll spot that. You just look down and
Well,
stuff
I
and
had
see what it is.
United as travel.
Okay.
And so even though it's Market Street, I was like, why did we
Okay, so
spend on
United-
travel this month? And I was like, wait, okay, I got it. So,
My American Airlines does that.
yeah.
It doesn't think it's travel. And with my American Airlines, it doesn't know whether it's travel for business or personal. And that makes a big difference
you
as
have
far
to-
as my category.
But
It's a lot easier than
I
typing
thought
everything in.
In my mind, I thought, well, that to me sounds like it's more work than doing.
It's a lot of work setting it up.
Setting it up.
Setting it
yes.
up's not fun.
Okay.
And another thing it can do is and I don't know if you looked at this too, but and I know on our right capital.
You know me, probably not.
But if it's like, because I sometimes use my business or my personal card to get like my travel miles.